This year, for the first time in over a decade, designers are refusing to recommend white for kitchen cabinets. It is not because trends are shifting, but because they have seen enough homeowners regret it after completion. You'd be awesome if you liked this video. 1. Rich cream and off-white. Pure white has not disappeared from kitchen design, but the way people use white is changing very clearly. The problem is not that white is ugly. The problem is that pure white, when coated onto the entire cabinetry system, countertops, and walls at the same time, easily creates a space so clean it is cold, so bright it causes glare, and so perfect that no one wants to actually cook in it. That is the reason rich cream and off-white are gradually replacing the position of pure white this year. Unlike pure white, rich cream has a very slight undertone of yellow or beige, creating a feel close to plaster, linen, or soft morning sunlight on a wall. It still maintains the brightness that people look for in white. The difference lies in the fact that light reflecting off a rich cream surface has a slightly warmer tone, keeping the eyes from getting strained after a long day, and making the kitchen feel more livable rather than just beautiful to look at. The most valuable aspect of off-white lies in its ability to serve as a background without competing for attention. When placed next to white oak, warm-veined marble, or brass hardware, the cream color does not compete with those materials but silently makes them look warmer and have more depth. This is the reason off-white often appears in kitchens that look more expensive than their actual budgets. However, cream must be chosen very carefully because the boundary between a beautiful rich cream and a dated rich cream is very thin. If the tone is blended with too much yellow, the kitchen can easily look old. If blended with too much gray, it reverts right back to the cold feeling of pure white. The most practical advice is to test paint samples right in your own kitchen at 3 different times of the day at least, because the exact same sample viewed in a store and viewed under the real light of a kitchen at dusk can be 2 completely different colors. The next part is a color that is surpassing white to become the #1 choice after more than a decade of being neglected. 2. Natural oak. For the first time in over a decade, natural wood grain has just surpassed white to become the most loved choice in kitchen cabinet design. It is not because people are tired of white, but because there is one thing that pure white can never do, which is to create a sense of wanting to touch it and wanting to stay. The biggest difference of oak does not lie in the color, but in the tactile sensation and visual depth. A white oak surface with just enough smooth texture feels softer, warmer, and much more real when touched compared to a cold, glossy white paint layer. When light shines on it, each line of the wood grain creates a very slight movement on the cabinet surface, giving the kitchen a relaxing feel instead of resembling a perfect but soulless showroom space. This year, the trend is no longer about mixing multiple colors within the same kitchen. Instead, people are using a single wood tone for the entire cabinetry system from floor to ceiling to create a seamless and consistent feel. When tall pantries, the kitchen island, and the larder cabinets all carry an identical wood shade, the kitchen looks distinctly neater, taller, and more high-end without needing any extra decorative details. But natural oak is not always easy to use. Choosing the wrong tone can cause the kitchen to turn yellow or create a dated feel. Woods that are too red or have too many knots sometimes make the space heavy and lose its modern edge. That is why current designers usually prioritize light, low yellow oak with soft grain and a matte finish to maintain a natural yet streamlined feel. 3. Mushroom and taupe. If oak conquers through the sense of touch, mushroom conquers through something harder to describe, which is the feeling that a kitchen belongs right in place the moment you walk in without needing to analyze why. This is being called the new white of this year, but the way it operates in a space is actually completely different from pure white. To understand why mushroom is winning, it is necessary to understand why the neutral gray tones that once dominated are gradually losing ground. Gray used to be a popular choice because it sat between white and earth tones, but using too much of it easily makes the kitchen not fully warm and not fully modern, hovering in an ambiguous emotional zone. Mushroom solves that problem because it blends earth brown, beige, and a bit of warm gray, creating a natural feel instead of trying to be neutral. The biggest advantage of mushrooms is that they soften the space without darkening the space. A mushroom cabinetry system can make the kitchen look warmer without being heavy, and look more high-end without needing too many expensive details. Compared to the natural oak in the previous section, mushroom is easier to apply because it functions as a soft backdrop that suits almost any accompanying material, from lightly veined marble to handcrafted ceramic tiles. But choosing the wrong tone turns a mushroom into a problem. If blended with too much brown, the cabinets look dull and old. Yellow light fixtures that are too strong can also easily shift the color in an unwanted direction. And if placed next to a cold gray countertop, the entire kitchen falls into a state of emotional mismatch. The most logical way to handle this is to test the color under the real light of the kitchen at multiple times of the day, because those two things usually yield results that differ more than you think. There is a color psychology study showing that this color tone actually lowers your heart rate when you stand in the kitchen. The next part explains why. 4. Warm greige terracotta. When many people hear of earth tones, they immediately think of an old-fashioned rustic style. But moving into this year, architects in major metropolitan areas like Chicago or New York are choosing a significantly more refined shade, a warm, gray-infused terracotta. This is the intersection between the quiet understatement of natural clay and the elegance of warm gray. And the result is a kitchen cabinet color that does not belong to any obvious trend, yet looks right in place in almost any space. I once consulted for a couple in suburban Pennsylvania who were preparing to remodel their kitchen before retirement. Initially, they planned to go with a safe beige, but once they viewed a sample of the terracotta color under the afternoon light right in their own kitchen, the decision changed instantly. The reason was not because it looked better in photos, but because it created a completely different feel when standing in the room. This color tone has the ability to absorb and reflect natural light in a way that creates a relaxing atmosphere and reduces visual fatigue after a long day, something conventional, beige cannot achieve even if it looks similar at a glance. According to color psychology experts, color palettes rooted in nature, like warm terracotta, help lower the heart rate and stimulate a better appetite when cooking. This is why a kitchen space with earth tones is usually perceived as more livable, not just more beautiful. But if you do not choose the right sheen for the surface, this color can easily turn into the look of dated 1990s hallway wall paint. The secret lies in a finish with just the right amount of gloss, not too matte and not too shiny, combined with countertops featuring light gray veining to pull a modern edge back into the overall space. 5. Butter yellow and ochre. No one thought yellow would make a comeback this way. Old school yellow was once viewed as the symbol of outdated 1970s kitchens. But this year's version is completely different. Pale butter yellow has been toned down, is softer, and has significantly more depth, and the result is a color tone appearing in the most refined kitchens of this year. The most practical reason butter yellow is drawing attention lies in its ability to handle light in small spaces. In many apartments within major cities, kitchens often lack large windows and can easily drown in cold white-gray color schemes. Butter yellow operates almost like a layer of soft light, making the space feel more open and welcoming without needing any actual structural changes. Ochre is deeper and more rooted in the earth. If butter yellow creates a light and fresh feel, ochre brings a riper sense with more depth, closer to the warm tones of Mediterranean style. Both operate best when paired with white marble countertops with soft veining, because that contrast keeps the yellow from drowning out while preventing the space from becoming glaring. The boundary between a beautiful butter yellow and a glaring butter yellow is very thin. If the yellow shade is just a bit too saturated or too warm, the kitchen instantly loses its modern feel. The simplest way to test is to view this color under neutral white light first, as that is the most common condition in real-world kitchens, not the warm lighting of a showroom. The next part is a kitchen cabinet color that people often use for coastal homes, but the real reason it works well in a small kitchen is completely different from what you think. 6. Misty blue. There are colors that conquer through boldness, and there are colors that conquer by making you exhale with relief the moment you step into the room. Misty blue belongs to the second group. This is a very light blue-gray tone that does not try to make a strong impression, but does the exact opposite. It makes the kitchen feel cool, airy, and quiet in a way that no white or gray tone can duplicate. What distinguishes misty blue from rich cream or off-white does not lie in the brightness level, but in the color temperature. Rich cream is warm and intimate, like morning sunlight, while misty blue is cool and open like the air after a light rain. Neither causes eye strain, but they create two completely different feelings when standing in the room, and that is something that must be sensed directly rather than understood through a photo. The interesting point about this color lies in the fact that it operates differently depending on the lighting. Under natural daylight, misty blue looks almost neutral and very light, but as evening falls and warm light fixtures turn on, the blue tone begins to emerge more clearly and the kitchen feels deeper and warmer without any changes. This is the reason this color is particularly suited for kitchens with window orientations where the light shifts heavily throughout the day. But there is a risk that needs to be known beforehand. If the blue tone is too cold or the lighting in the kitchen is too white, this color can easily become washed out and lack depth. When combined with too many cold gray materials at the same time, the overall setup loses the warmth necessary for the kitchen space to feel comfortable. The simplest solution is to introduce at least one warm material, perhaps light wood flooring, off-white stone countertops, or unlacquered brass hardware. So this blue tone has an emotional anchor within the space. 7. Classic moss green. If Misty blue brings a light and relaxing feel, moss green is a completely different story about quietness and architectural depth. This is a green tone blended with a large amount of deep stone gray, mimicking the color of moss clinging to cliff faces after a rain. A common mistake when choosing green for a kitchen is often picking tones that are too vibrant, making the kitchen look more like a smoothie shop than a living space with depth. The deep gray portion within moss green avoids that trap by pulling the entire feel down to exactly where it needs to be. Earlier this year, I remodeled a classic apartment in Boston, replacing the entire outdated white cabinetry system with moss green. What I did not anticipate was that this color hides grease splatters and fingerprints during daily cooking much better than any light color I have ever used. A huge plus for anyone who does not want to spend time constantly wiping things down. When paired with unlacquered brass hardware, the kitchen exudes a timeless beauty without needing any extra expensive decorative items. The real estate website Zillow points out that homes with kitchens featuring natural gray-green tones sell faster and hold their value better compared to conventional neutral tones. It is not a reason to chase a trend, but investing in a color palette that both brings daily peace and practically protects property value is clearly smarter than choosing a safe but soulless white. The next part is about the darkest blue tone on this list and why it hides stains even better than black under real-world daily use conditions. 8. Dark Moody Jade Green. Dark Moody. Jade green is not a color for safe kitchens, and there is nothing wrong with admitting that bluntly. But this is also a color tone that, when used correctly, creates a visual depth that no other color tone on this list achieves in the same way. The soft, smoky gray layer within this color tone pulls the kitchen out of the safe color zone without pushing it into a zone that is too dramatic, and that is precisely the reason it is being chosen more this year. The real difference compared to white cabinets does not lie in this tone being darker, but in how it handles light in the opposite direction. White cabinets push light out and make the space look brighter, but simultaneously make every line flat and lacking in emotion. Dark Moody Jade Green absorbs light in a selective way that gives each cabinet door distinct weight and depth. When accompanied by light countertops and brushed brass hardware, this color creates a feeling that the kitchen was designed intentionally instead of just choosing a safe solution. The strength of this tone lies in its balance. It has color but is not loud. It is dark but not heavy like black. When used for base cabinets while keeping upper cabinets lighter, the space remains airy while still having a solid visual anchor in the lower portion of the kitchen. But the drawback that needs to be stated bluntly is that if the kitchen is small, lacks light, or has low ceilings, using this tone for the entire cabinetry system can cause the space to feel visibly compressed. Choosing a green shade that is too cold can also easily make the kitchen look gloomy and less welcoming. Cream or off-white countertops are the most effective elements to open up the overall brightness in this case because the contrast between smoky green and warm white creates a balance without needing anything else. 9. Charcoal gray and graphite. Pure black can be very impressive in photos, but in many real-world kitchens it easily feels heavy, cold, and somewhat rigid after a while. Charcoal gray solves this problem by retaining the depth and modernity of the dark color, but adding just enough gray so the space doesn't feel completely closed off. This is why this tone is being chosen by those who want a strong and distinctive kitchen, but still want to live in it comfortably every day. The most valuable aspect of charcoal gray lies in its non-glossy surface. When not reflecting strongly, charcoal gray feels much more subdued and smooth than glossy black. The non-glossy surface also has another practical advantage that few consider when choosing cabinet colors. It doesn't show fingerprints and watermarks as clearly as a glossy surface, meaning the kitchen looks neater after a week of actual use, not just immediately after cleaning. Charcoal gray is best suited to modern, minimalist kitchens with light-colored countertops and warm wood floors. Warm wood flooring plays a crucial role here because it creates a color-temperature contrast that makes the darker tones above appear softer and less cold compared to a gray or black base. However, in small kitchens or those lacking natural light, using too much charcoal gray can make the space feel cramped. If paired with overly cool lighting, the overall effect can become harsh and lose the necessary warmth. Additionally, the rough, non-glossy surface can make daily grease cleaning more laborious, even if it looks neat. Combining charcoal gray with creamy white countertops and moderately warm lighting is the most effective way to balance this dark tone, making it a luxurious and practical backdrop rather than just beautiful in photos. You've just seen the most modern dark color. The next part is about the darkest color with the most personality and why designers are using it in a completely different way than how people use traditional navy blue. 10. Navy blue and deep dark blue. Navy blue has always had a place in kitchen design, but moving into this year, this blue shade is being pushed deeper and darker to the point of nearly touching black. The version drawing attention is no longer the traditional safe navy blue, but a dark blue tone with depth that makes each cabinet door look sharper and hold more weight under any lighting condition. Compared to black, deep blue is softer and creates less of a heavy feeling. Compared to regular navy blue, it is more mysterious, more modern, and possesses a better ability to highlight the surrounding materials. When accompanied by matte gold brass hardware, the hardware portion is not just a secondary detail but becomes a highly valuable bright spot against the dark cabinet background. It is precisely the contrast between the deep blue and the warm brass tone that makes the kitchen feel meticulously designed, rather than just choosing a dark color to make an impression. The greatest appeal of this ultra-dark blue tone comes from the way it makes the cabinet lines look sharper and have visibly more distinct depth under the light. This color is particularly suited for kitchen islands and base cabinets in kitchens with high ceilings and good lighting. Additionally, it hides light stains significantly better than pure white, a practical advantage that not everyone calculates when choosing a cabinet color. But there are a few points to consider frankly. If used too much in a kitchen that is small or lacks light, this tone can cause the space to shrink. A glossy surface is also easier to expose to dust and water spots than a matte surface. The most effective way to handle this is to open up the brightness with creamy white countertops and choose a matte finish instead of a glossy one, so the color looks deeper and softer under the real-world lighting conditions of the kitchen. 11. Espresso brown and dark walnut. Deep brown is making a comeback, but not in the heavy or traditional way that many people once feared. The novelty of this year lies in the way deep brown is used to create an understated luxury, unpretentious yet very high-end. If white makes a kitchen bright and safe, espresso brown creates depth, warmth, and a significantly more mature feeling without needing any extra decorative details to prove it. An espresso brown kitchen island in the middle of a light-colored kitchen can become a very strong visual anchor without overpowering what is around it. When combined with creamy white countertops and pale gold brass hardware, the dark brown shade does not darken the space but makes everything look more layered. It is like a high-end piece of furniture placed in the right spot, silently elevating the entire kitchen without needing to announce it. But deep brown needs to be used in moderation. If used for the entire cabinetry system in a small kitchen lacking light, the space can easily become heavy and dated. If a tone with too much red is chosen, the kitchen may evoke an outdated feeling instead of luxury. For many modern kitchens, espresso brown looks best when used for the island or base cabinets, while upper cabinets should be kept lighter to create an airy feel. A matte surface with natural wood grain adds a highly refined tactile sensation, something a glossy finish never achieves. The 11 colors we just went through all share one thing in common. They know their limits. The final section does not, and that is precisely why it is the most worth watching. 12. Burgundy and terracotta. This is not a color palette for a safe kitchen, and there is no need to pretend otherwise. Burgundy and terracotta are two color tones that demand confidence from the person choosing them. But when the right person makes that decision, the result is a kitchen that feels more personal and alive than any color shade on this list. The charm of burgundy lies in its luxurious depth, resembling the shade of dark wine under warm evening lighting. Terracotta is more approachable, bringing a handcrafted and warm feel in a Mediterranean style. Compared to a bright red that can easily cause eye fatigue, both of these tones are deeper, riper, and much easier to live with when interacting with them every day. When used for a kitchen island or the entire base cabinetry, they create a very strong visual anchor without needing too many other things for the kitchen to look intentional. Many people fear burgundy will darken the kitchen, but the solution lies in the contrast. When combined with light-veined white marble countertops, those veins pull the kitchen up instantly. Adding under-cabinet lighting, a bright backsplash, and soft brass hardware, the deep red shade is no longer heavy but becomes a warm, deep, and incredibly alluring backdrop. What sets these two color tones apart from everything else on the list is that they make the kitchen look less like a showroom and feel significantly more lived in. This is a choice for those who already know exactly what they want and do not need their kitchen to be approved by everyone. Before calling your contractor, do one thing. Print out samples of the 2 or 3 colors you are considering and tape them onto your current kitchen cabinets for a week. View them in the morning, afternoon, and evening under the real light. The right decision will naturally reveal itself without needing any further advice.